Recap in minutes. In today's video, we will be enjoying a war comedy film, entitled War Dogs. There will be spoilers ahead, chill out and enjoy. The movie begins in a flash forward where David, now an international arms dealer, is taken out of a car's truck after being kidnapped and beaten by two Albanian guys. Henry comes over and points a gun at him to send a message. David then narrates what war is really all about. Presently, David works as a massage therapist in Miami, providing services to rich men. He does not necessarily enjoy what he does, but he needs to make a living after moving away from his parents and being unsuccessful with his previous jobs. One day, he decides to quit as he utilizes his entire life savings on high-quality Egyptian bed sheets to resell to retirement homes. He proposes to one potential client but rejects the offer as old people under his facility do not really need the sheets. David is now in a dilemma as he anticipated that his business would easily gain ground. At a funeral, David runs into Ephraim, an old friend who he lost contact with a long time ago. Ephraim invites him for a ride and shares with him that he used to work for his uncle selling guns over the internet until his uncle screwed him over. That's when he decided to start his own company named A Incorporated. David goes home to his girlfriend, Iz, and tells her about running into his old friend. He also shares that Ephraim moved back to Miami, and he'll be dropping by his office tomorrow to grab some lunch. Ephraim welcomes David into his office while he impersonates an army officer to find out what his competitors are bidding on guns. Ephraim further reveals that he is now selling weapons to the US military for the current war in Iraq, and he is getting a lot of money from the deals. Ephraim further expounds that military equipment orders are posted on a public website. His main job is to bid for small orders that are completely ignored by big-time contractors. These small orders are still worth millions. Iz tells David that she is pregnant. Knowing that he has nothing going on for him, he shares his problem with Ephraim. Ephraim offers him a job at A, but David is unable to commit as he and Iz are opposed to the ongoing war in Iraq. Ephraim explains that he himself does not support the war, but he can't afford to waste the opportunity of earning from it. David is now starting to soften his stance, but he is uncertain how he'd sell this to Iz. David decides to lie to Iz in order to work for Ephraim. He tells her that with the help of his friend, they will be selling bed sheets to the US military. Iz is thrilled. She's not a big fan of seeing those sheets occupying a huge chunk of their apartment anyway. It's then revealed that Ralph Slutsky, a local businessman, is Ephraim's secret partner. He provides them funding after being assured that Ephraim's company only sells arms to protect Israel from her enemies in the Middle East. While at a restaurant, David receives a call from an officer in Iraq. He then shares with Ephraim that they just landed a contract to supply thousands of Beretta pistols to the Iraqi police in Iraq's capital city. This is, by far, their biggest hit since working together. David receives a call while Iz is getting an ultrasound to check the status of their baby. He excuses himself to answer the call. It comes from Captain Santos, the officer that David is dealing with about the Beretta pistols transaction. David assures him that the shipment is within schedule. Santos asks David that since the arms will be shipped from Italy, he wants to know if David is aware of the latest legislation that has just been passed banning the shipment of weapons from Italy to Iraq. Despite missing such crucial information, David pretends that he's aware of the possible hiccup and that he's already working on it. David consults Ephraim on what their next move is. When asked if it's about time to tell Captain Santos about the real status, Ephraim discourages him from doing so, stating that telling the truth will not help anybody. Ephraim's plan is to route the cargo to Jordan before shipping it out to Iraq. During a family gathering, Ephraim drops by unannounced as he is unable to get a hold of David. Something urgent needs to be discussed. Ephraim tells David that their cargo has been seized in Jordan. Captain Santos, who is taken aback at why the cargo reached Jordan, calls David and threatens to blacklist A. Ephraim takes over and begs not to do it, as it would mean the end of his business. Ephraim comes up with an elaborate story to justify that he can't afford to lose his business, but Captain Santos has already hung up. While David and Ephraim are up in arms, Iz overhears their conversation and finds out that David is an arms dealer. She expresses her disappointment that he lied to him. She also reminds David that they are both opposed to war. He tries to justify that he needs this job as his bed sheet business is not gaining any momentum. Their argument is interrupted when Ephraim tells David that they need to fly to Jordan to deal with the situation head-on. David and Ephraim arrive in Jordan. Due to the hold, their permit has already expired, and it will take time to request a new one. That's when they bribe locals to release the shipment, hoping everything will be sorted out. 3 days later, they still don't have any update about the shipment. Ephraim is beginning to think that they have been ripped off. Moments later, his phone rings. He is told through a child interpreter that their contact is outside. Instead of shipping the cargo, the delivery will now be by land. The child assures them that their designated driver is the best smuggler in the business. David is hesitant to travel, but Ephraim manages to convince him. They have 800 kilometers to cover, and time is not on their side. As they travel at night, their truck is stopped by the border patrol for inspection. David and Ephraim are nervous as this could be the end of their journey. Their driver explains that the foreigners with him have a business in Baghdad. He then hands over 2 boxes of cigarettes. They are safe for now, and their journey continues. David wakes up as their truck is idle at a gas station. Their driver is gone. He steps out and checks outside, only to find out that there's a dead body at the gas station. He immediately returns back to the truck and tells Ephraim, who is not surprised by what David discovered. Iz calls David to let him know that he has her support. David then notices that vehicles with armed men are approaching their trucks. He assures Iz that everything is fine before ending the call. Ephraim is away from the truck, as he needs to pee. David hurriedly calls Ephraim as the vehicles are closing in. Marlboro, their driver, who is also out to get some fuel, is left behind as Ephraim takes control of the truck to get away from the insurgents. Marlboro begs them to wait for him while carrying a container full of fuel. Marlboro is able to catch up and refill the truck's tank. The insurgents start shooting at them, as they get closer to Iraq. Not long after, the insurgents stop chasing them as a helicopter drives them away. The 3 then arrive at the military base. Captain Santos is surprised to see them in the flesh. He is also impressed that they arrive in one piece, knowing they had to go through what they call the Triangle of Death. They are then paid. Business is good for the 2 friends. They are escorted to the airport and return to the US. After the successful Beretta deal, the 2 refuse to stop, especially now that A is making waves for taking that risk to complete the delivery. Ralph even increases his investment, thereby allowing them to expand their business even more. A has a chance at the Afghan deal, which is worth $300 million. If they win the bid, this will be their biggest contract. This deal requires 100 million rounds of AK-47 ammunition and guarantees a $100 million net profit for A. They travel to Las Vegas to look for a supplier, but the logistics just do not make sense. As it appears, they are biting off more than they can chew. Out of pure luck, David runs into Henry Gerard while playing at a casino. Henry is a legendary arms dealer who assures them that he can take care of his order as he has access to massive unused weapon storage in Albania. Besides, as Albania is on the verge of joining NATO, the country needs to eliminate all these weapons that will be considered illegal afterward. Henry is unable to directly supply the US military as he is on the terrorist watch list. Through A, he can fill the order, and everyone will profit from it. Ephraim is interested in proceeding with the plan, but David is not comfortable dealing with Henry. Ephraim manages to convince David, explaining that this is just how it works. The 2 travel to Albania to see the supply in the flesh and test them as well. Ephraim and David are amazed at seeing a giant warehouse filled with weapons, including the bullets they come for. They then return back to the US and win the bid. David travels to Albania alone to prepare the shipment. He soon discovers that almost all the ammunition is from China and is considered illegal due to a US embargo. He immediately informs Ephraim as this could be a huge hurdle for them. Ephraim proposes to repack the ammunition using lighter storage. Their Albanian driver, Bashkim, then introduces them to his friend, Enver, who can supply the boxes and repack the bullets. Ephraim finds out through Bashkim that Henry has charged them a 400% markup. David is not showing interest in doing something about it, but Ephraim wants to cut him out of the deal. David asks him to just let it go, as they are making money anyway. Ephraim is determined to teach Henry a lesson. Henry discovers that he's been cut out. He then retaliates by having David kidnapped and beaten. He then threatens David at gunpoint. David returns back to the warehouse and learns that Ephraim has not paid Enver yet. He also finds out that Bashkim is missing. He then goes back home to Miami and tells us everything. He promises not to lie to her again. David demands the money he is owed. He is now quitting after that incident in Albania, where Henry put a gun on his head. Ephraim refuses to pay. 3 months later, Ralph approaches him to mediate between him and Ephraim. They sit down at a restaurant, but he finds Ephraim's offer ludicrous, given what he is supposed to be getting from the deal. David threatens Ephraim with evidence of the documents that he forged. David and Ephraim get a call from the New York Times. It appears that there's an ongoing investigation about the repacking. Moments later, they are arrested by the FBI. Enver, the Albanian who was contracted to repack, was never paid. He then contacted the Pentagon to report it. It also revealed that Ralph was wired when he pretended to meditate. The movie ends with Ephraim is sentenced to 4 years in prison. David is sentenced to 7 months under house arrest. Henry apologized for the kidnapping. He then gives David a briefcase full of money to thank him for not dragging his name. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more videos like this and help the channel grow.